So now let's introduce our next speaker, Dan Assisi, who talk about achieving mental and spiritual balance, a current global challenge. Dan Assisi is an author and an international speaker who has delivered hundreds of talks and conferences on spirituality in over 60 cities on 4 continents. Known for a mix of deep thinking and witty humor, Dan takes a unique approach to spirituality that is steeped in reason to remind audiences everywhere of our spiritual nature. He's a founding member of the Spiritist Institute and of the California Spiritist Association, and hosts the Spiritist Conversations podcast. Please welcome Dan.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. And I also understand that I am the last person between you and lunch. So, if you bear with me for the next couple of minutes, we are going to be able to talk about an important topic, achieving mental and spiritual balance, which is something that I know I could use a lot of help with. So you ready? All right. Okay. Let's get at it. And let's be honest. The world is going through a rough phase. I think that we can all agree that life is not exactly at its easiest these days. I mean, we have just come out of a pandemic that has really changed the way we look at life. Many of us have feared for our lives and the lives of those next to us. And to this point, we are still struggling a little bit with the idea of what does work look like? Can I work from home? Do I change? Do I move cities? And it really has upended the way that we look at what we do and how we relate to others. But of course, that is not the only thing going on. And as a matter of fact, we know that in this very moment, we have war in Ukraine, we have war in different parts of the world in general going on, and there is this anger towards each other and this arrogance that we can just impose our will onto the next person. And that is really taxing because it doesn't really let us stay at ease because we worry that it could happen to us at any point in time. And that's tough too. And of course, there is also a lot of economic uncertainty. We are worried about inflation. We are worried about our jobs. We are worried about artificial intelligence and what the future work could look like. Would that change how I earn a living? Would it change my jobs? And we are frazzled by these different things that really shake us up in our day-to-day piece. But there's more, like a bad infomercial. There is more, right? We also know the world is full of inequities. We know that things are not even. We know that people are still not treated equally, and that it might vary because of their social status, because of the color of their skin, their sexual preference. We know that the world needs a little bit of help. As a matter of fact, just to walk up here reminds us that as a society, we have not done a good job in caring for all our citizens. We have not found a way to take care of everybody. We see so many of our neighbors, our unhoused neighbors, living in conditions that are so difficult. And it's not a Portland problem, it is a world problem. And of course, I would be remiss to also mention that we could be doing a little bit better on the tolerance front. We seem to be collectively, as a society, having a really tough time being accepting of each other's perspectives. Where we sit in the political spectrum, where we live and what we think is right, shouldn't be reason for us to not accept our neighbor for how they are. And all these things going on at once are really tough. I mean, to be honest, just talking about this gets me a little anxious. Gets me a little bit worried. How about you? So I can understand that if this is all we are seeing every day, it will knock us out of our perch. it will stay in our minds in such a way as to bring us a little bit of unbalance. And so what is it that we could do to be able to understand how to navigate all these things? Are there lessons? Is there a way for us to be able to pack all of this and make sense of the world so that we can live better and more fulfilling lives? And for that, I would love to harken back to another interesting period of our communal life. I want to go back to 1671. And in this particular time, I find very interesting because it was just a couple of years before, in 1666, that the Great Fire of London took place and basically wiped out 3/4 of the city of London. A little oven that was left on and baking pudding laying that caught fire in all the houses and brought great destruction to a city. And during that time, much like ours, we were trying to find out, how do we rebuild? How do we start again? How do we repurpose and resignify life? And so a decision was made to rebuild St. Paul's Cathedral, a beautiful cathedral that has stood in Ludgate Hill in the same place since the 600s. It was burned down, and they figured they need to rebuild this. And they hired a famous architect, Sir Christopher Wren, who has built more than 50 different churches in the whole of London. And he came up with grandiose plans to build St. Paul's Cathedral that stand to this day in that location. It's a beautiful place. But what I find most interesting is that as a good architect, as a good builder, he would inspect his work every so often. And the story goes that in one particular day in 1671, he went to take stock of how the cathedral was growing and it was being built. And in his way to examining the building, he found 3 different brick layers at work. The first one seemed really frazzled and worried. So he went to talk with him and he asked him, "What are you doing?" And the first bricklayer says, "I'm a bricklayer. I am working hard to lay bricks so that I can feed my family." And he understood his worry and he continued on. And he saw a second bricklayer that wasn't perhaps as frazzled as the first, but it was still working hard. And he asked him, "What is it that you are doing?" And he said, "I'm a builder. I am building a wall." And touched by that, he seemed to notice a third bricklayer that was a little bit more jolly, a little bit happier than the other 2 bricklayers, even though he too was laying bricks to create this new cathedral. So intrigued, Sir Christopher Wren went to him and said, "And what are you doing? Who are you?" And the third bricklayer turned to him with joy and a smile in his face and says, "I am a mason, and I am building a cathedral to the Almighty." And that is such a powerful story and is so emblematic of our days because the 3 of them were laying bricks. The 3 of them were working on the same project. The 3 of them had the same role, but they were in vastly different worlds. Because the way that they saw their work and how they went about this dictated their whole perception of what the task was in their role in the world. And I wonder if there isn't a lesson in there for us in this time and age, as we are also trying to rebuild the work. Who are we? Are we laying bricks? Are we building walls? Or are we constructing a cathedral? I know that I would very much like to stay in that place of joy of that bricklayer that was building a cathedral, who could find the happiness of the work he was doing and see the reason for all his toils. But I also know that in our day-to-day, it's hard sometimes to remain in that perspective. So what is it that we could do to have that perspective in our lives in such a way that it eases our path through the challenges of living? Well, fortunately, there are some strategies that we can think of, and some of these strategies can help us achieve balance. And this is something that research tells us. For instance, we know that connecting with others on a daily basis help us become happier and more fulfilled human beings. Human interaction helps us remember why we're here and help us work while we're laying bricks. We also know that being physically active, it's important. Research shows us that if we're in a funk, that if we're being a little bit tired, morose, a little bit sometimes depressed, that physical exercise will release hormones and endorphins that will help our body not feel trapped, but see different possibilities and contemplate the world in a better place. So physical exercise is also a component that could help you in your mental health quest. But there's more. We also know that learning new skills, doing things differently, helps us get out of our rut and helps us see different things and feel like we're going places and that we're growing. And that also aids us in our quest to maintain our balance and understand that we have an important role to play, that we're not just laying bricks, that we're building something. But we also know, this is where it gets really beautiful, and this research tells us that when we give to others, when we volunteer, when we help others, even when we are not feeling so great ourselves, we begin to feel better because we are able to take a step back from our condition and understand that there are other people also going through things, and our pain is lessened for that moment. And here's the beautiful thing, I think. We begin to realize that even in our darkest moments, even when we are struggling, we can make a difference in somebody else's life. Even when we are at our worst, we have something to give to the universe. Even when we don't know what to do, we can help build a beautiful cathedral. And a fifth tip that is also research-based is it's important to pay attention to the present moment, to where we are, to be where our feet are. Not thinking about what happened yesterday and how I messed that thing up or I got it right. Not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. Of course, it's good to take stock and reflect, and it's good to plan for the future. But it's important to be here where you are so that anxiety and angst doesn't take the best of you. When you are here, you remember that you are okay. In this very second here, whether you're in this auditorium or you're watching us, you are okay. So take a deep breath in, be here, and be mindful of where you are. And that is a wonderful moment. In fact, these are wonderful strategies, but without application, they might mean nothing to us. So why don't we practice a little bit? Let's get you moving. Let's do this. Go to someone who you have never met before. Introduce yourself. Say, hey, I am Dan. I'm from San Diego. And offer something of yourself. And I'm here because this, or my favorite color is this. And we'll take a moment, whatever it is, give something of ourselves to others. Go. You know me, go find somebody else. All right. We said one person, not everybody, right? So let's find our way back to our seats. Thank you. Thank you very much for being willing participants in this application of knowledge. We deeply appreciate the opportunity to connect with different people, and hopefully you also like stretching your legs a little bit, right? And hear why this is so great, because you get to know somebody else that is new and that maybe has similar interests as you. You could form wonderful relationships from this. And there's something else too. The World Health Organization tells us that 1 out of 4 people will struggle with mental or neurological disorders in their lifetime. So look around, find 3 people, just look at them. You or one of these 3 people will suffer at one point in time the challenges of this world. And you may just have talked to that person, or that person may just have talked to you. You may just made a bridge that changes somebody's day, and that's a beautiful day. And that's the beauty of what we are trying to remind ourselves of here, which is there are strategies for achieving balance, but to be honest, there are moments in which I personally struggle in remembering them or why they should be there. There are days that I have a tough time remembering that I am more than just laying bricks in this life. And so, what could we do to remember to use these strategies, to tie it all together? And I think this is really where I think it's great for us to put our attention in. Spirituality can play a major role in remembering us to do these things and why they are so important. And I think that no other body of knowledge, of way of thinking, can help us understand the need than Spiritism. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because when we think about spirituality and the fact that we are more than the physical body, we begin to see things differently. It gives us a different lens into the world. And we see ourselves not as simple bricklayers having to survive in the day-to-day, but spirits who are navigating through space and time, growing, nourishing ourselves, discovering new things, and helping build beautiful cathedrals. It's like having a different pair of glasses. As a matter of fact, I'm a new glass wearer. Only in the past month or so, I've started to wear glasses for reading up close, and surprisingly, I realized that I really needed glasses. And now I can see things and like, wow, I didn't know that I could use glasses until I started wearing glasses. So when I put my glasses on, I can see things better. And Spiritism does that to me. When I look at the world through a Spiritist lens, I begin to understand that the world is slightly different than what I imagine. But what is it that Spiritism brings to my life that helps me refocus on different things? What is it that it's important for us to remember in different ways? Well, obviously, the first thing is that we are immortal spirits. And how do we know that then? Because for the past 160 plus years, we Spiritists have been researching what is it that it's out there. And because of this DNA of inquiry that is built into Spiritism, we started to investigate this phenomena that were taking place. It led us to understand that the consciousness, the essence of those who had lived before us were still there, and they were trying to communicate with us. And we have spent 160 years studying mediumship, which is the process by which we can entertain these conversations to learn that indeed what we are survives this physical body and lives on. And that in fact, we come back as many times through reincarnation as it is necessary for us to grow. And that is powerful awareness when it's brought to our daily lives. Why? There's many different reasons, but I want to bring 3 to you today so that we can kind of hold on to them because they might help us in our path to building cathedrals. The first one, if I can only press the right button, is that as we remember that you are an immortal spirit, we come to this natural conclusion that we will live forever. And that is reassuring. Because what I have built and what I have struggled to do and all that I have learning will never cease to be. Take the pressure off. And there's something else that is also true. That means that those who are around me who are undergoing the same process are also always going to live on, which means the love we build with each other never ends. If we don't stop loving those who have passed, why is it that sometimes we forget that they have not stopped loving us either? As a consequence, I am led to believe that at any point in time, I have an amount of love that I cannot understand being directed at me by those who care about me and that I cannot see. Especially if I consider that I have had many acquaintances, many relationships, many colleagues in different lifetimes too. So not just the people I know from this life, but from previous lives are also supporting me and cheering me on in my process. And that means yours are too. You're not alone. You can do this. And that is a powerful awareness. And there's something else that comes from that as well. And that is that you are ready for anything this world throws at you. Because we know that there is a God and there is reincarnation. Which means that you have been preparing for these challenges for many lifetimes and you have survived all the challenges from previous lives before. I guarantee you 100% of your worst days, you've survived them. And you will survive every other day from the rest of eternity. And if there is a God, and there is a God because our spiritual friends tells us so, and it makes sense, it also means that all the challenges we face today can be solved because a kind and just God, a loving God, because that is the definition of God, will never give us a challenge that we cannot solve. Now, we may not solve it the way we want to, but there is a learning, there is a lesson to be taken from there. There is a solution in there. And that is fundamentally important. So, friends, when we think with our spiritual glasses on and begin to think of ourselves as spiritual beings, we realize that challenges are compliments. It is God saying, you can do this. You can now solve this bigger problem. Go for it. You have the resources. You have the friends. You have the ability. Do it. And that is also very incredible and very reassuring. And the last one that I want to bring here, because there are many more things that we can talk about this. We could spend hours talking about the wonderful implications of believing in an immortal life and what Spiritism has brought us. Remember, you belong everywhere because you are a child of God created by the Creator, which means that you are an heir to all of creation, which means you can be comfortable wherever it is that you find yourselves. If you remember that, you will inherit not only the earth, but the entire universe. So wherever it is that you are, you belong. We forget that. We move cities, we move families, we move countries, and we forget, we think that we don't belong. But that is our worries, just laying bricks, not building cathedrals. But when we remember that we are immortal spirits, then it becomes a little bit easier for us to contemplate the idea that indeed we can be okay wherever we are, that we have love wherever we are, and that we can overcome whatever comes our way at any point in time, wherever we are. And that, my friends, makes it a tiny bit easier for me to breathe, to stop and connect with others, to remember I have to take care of my physical body, which is a wonderful vehicle for learning, that I should learn new skills because I'm going to use them not only now, but in lives to come. So it's not a waste of time. And that when I help give to others, I might also be giving to myself. Because today, I might be in a position to be able to give, and tomorrow, I might be in a position to receive. And not just tomorrow, but tomorrow, if you get my drift, in the next life. Today I might look like this. Tomorrow I might be a woman of color in a different part of this world. And my experience might be different. So why not make it better for all of us right now? Invest in ourselves. And it makes it easier for me to concentrate in this moment, knowing that if I put my effort in front of me, and I can do the things that are presented to me in the best possible manner, even though I know that I'm not an expert in everything, I am taking a step forward towards not only my own evolution, but that of everything around me. I'm going to do this again. I release, and I'm present, and I'm grateful. And I begin to understand that I can truly take a different perspective onto laying bricks in life. And so, what cathedral will you build? What will you do with the bricks that life brings to you today? It is okay for you to lay bricks. It is okay for you to build walls. But do not forget that you're also building a cathedral, that you are creating something special. And it doesn't have to be a monumental cathedral like that St. Paul's. When you are raising your family with love and preparing your kids for the future you are giving to the world, you are building a cathedral. When you are doing the best at work, whatever work it be, and you're bringing love and you're making it with care and improving things for yourself and for others, you are building a cathedral. When you are volunteering your time to help those who are in need, whether by talking with them or giving some of your money to different causes and helping if you cannot be there, you are helping build a cathedral. When you're thinking about how to improve yourself and allow yourself to pardon yourself and accept yourself for who you are, and understand that the things you've done are now in the past and you are given a choice to do things differently for the future, you are building a cathedral. And that sometimes, it's something that makes me a little bit more at ease and reminds me that I need to pay attention on what truly matters. And when I do that, the world becomes a little bit easier. Mind you, I'm still going to have to build. But laying those bricks becomes a little bit lighter, a little bit better, because I know what the end product is, and it is beautiful. So the calling today that I urge us to make space for in our hearts is, how will we use the bricks that life presents us with the skills that we have to build the cathedral we think should be built? Because deep down inside we know. And I think that is the invitation that has been lingering for 2,000 years, when we have this incredible Spirit, Jesus, the Christ, the sent one, the Messiah, who is a spirit of an incredible understanding and wisdom that came to show us how to live, not just a physical life, but transcend this moment. And that is why sometimes I like to bring a different picture of what the Christ traditionally is associated with. This is a picture painted by a young painter at the time, I think she was 9, a Chieni. It's called The Prince of Peace. How Jesus looked physically, it's not important. But it's important for us to re-emerge our idea of what Christ and religion and spirituality is. To transform that which we had received and may no longer suit us to something more accepting, more encompassing, that help us build cathedrals, not walls that will divide us. Because we sometimes do that. In our desire to mean something, to have a purpose, we feel sometimes that if I build this wall, I will shut these people and this will be okay for me because there's not enough. That is not true. Because once we put our goggles in, once we see spiritually, we know that there's more than enough, that you are enough, and that everything is going to be okay because there is an architect who laid the plans for the cathedral we are building. So today, in this day and age when there are so many things that will compete for your attention and will trouble you in many different ways and call you to have values that perhaps are not as important as they seem to be, and things that will wane and go away with time, focus on the immortal. Remember on that which would outlast what you do, the character you build, and the cathedral that you are helping create with your everyday actions. And as we do that, my sincerest hope to you is that your mental and spiritual balance will come into focus, and you will find that navigating that this world is a lot easier than we previously thought. And we will have both the satisfaction, the joy, and the pleasure of working towards something greater and more beautiful than we could ever imagine. And today, we start by laying a single brick at a time. So I look forward to seeing what cathedral you have built and what we'll continue to do in the future, and help you along the way if we can. Thank you, and peace be with all of us.